According to some, he burned Rome. According to others, he massacred his people. And according to others, he was a wonderful emperor. Nero is Emperor Claudius's stepson, but he is older than his real son, Britannicus. Claudius died mysteriously in 54 AD after eating a plate of mushrooms prepared by his wife Agrippina. In other words, he was poisoned. So much so that during Nero's reign, mushrooms were called the food of the gods. After Claudius died, Nero, who was 17, temporarily took the throne because Britannicus, who was supposed to ascend, was under 14 years old. Britannicus died mysteriously after drinking a glass of wine at a celebration the night before. He came of age to take the throne. In other words, he was poisoned too. Thus, Nero became the undisputed leader of the Roman Empire. Both of Nero's mother, Agrippina's husbands, had died mysteriously. She had finally put her son on the throne, and even had her own face minted on coins. However, because the flame of her ambition for power never faded for a moment, she frequently began to interfere in Nero's affairs. When she finally interfered in Nero's relationship with Poppaea Sabina, Nero made his decision. Agrippina was killed in a not at all mysterious way in 59 AD by a loyal slave of Nero in a country house in the Bay of Naples. Nero's first wife, Claudia Octavia, was known as a virtuous wife, but Nero soon grew tired of this woman and began to argue frequently. He tried to strangle his wife several times. When he saw it wasn't working, he divorced her on the pretext that she was infertile and sent her into exile. When he received news that Claudia Octavia had not left Rome, he gave the order for her death. Claudia Octavia's veins were cut. She was placed in a hot tub to die from blood loss, and finally her head was cut off and sent to the emperor. The reason for Nero's divorce from Claudia Octavia was actually that his mistress, Poppaea Sabina, had become pregnant. He married her immediately, and they had a child who would die 4 months later. However, Nero grew tired of her as well and began to fight frequently. While Poppaea Sabina was pregnant with their second child, Nero kicked her horribly in the stomach. Poppaea Sabina died in 65 AD. It is said that Nero entered a period of mourning after her death because this murder was accidental. Although Nero was a violent, deviant man, he was still quite loved by the people in the early years of his empire. The man had bad luck. He frequently held large festivals for all the people to attend, keeping them happy. He even organized a grand ceremony when the king of Parthia came to Rome. After years of austerity policies, Nero's generous attitude left a positive impression on the people. Of course, this situation changed later. In the year 64 AD, on the night connecting July 18th to July 19th, a fire started on the slope of the Aventine overlooking the Circus Maximus, and the entire city burned fiercely for 6 full days. This fire, later called the Great Fire of Rome, occurred when Nero was not in the city. This situation drew great criticism, and everyone, especially all the writers of the period, blamed Nero. There are even claims that Nero played the fiddle while watching Rome burn. Everyone who wrote about that period blamed Nero for the Great Roman Fire. After the 3rd century, Christianity would spread within the Roman Empire and even become the official state religion. However, in its early days, Christians suffered great persecution from the Romans. They were all rounded up, tortured, crucified, burned, and allowed to be torn apart by dogs. Unfortunately, all this persecution was known to Emperor Nero, but far from objecting, he supported these actions and gave the death orders himself. After the Great Roman Fire, a large empty space opened up in the city. Since shopping malls were not popular at the time, Emperor Nero decided to build a palace in this area, but not just any palace, a palace of gold. This huge palace, built around a giant 37-meter column, also contained a statue of Nero. This structure, called the Golden Palace, was completed shortly before Nero's death. Not many ruins remain today because after Nero's death, the palace began to be used for many different purposes. This part is quite disturbing. In 67 AD, Nero ordered a young slave named Sporus to be castrated. After he was castrated, Nero married him. According to the historian Cassius Dio, Sporus looked very much like Nero's wife Poppaea Sabina, whom he had accidentally killed. For this reason, Nero had this boy castrated and married him to soothe his conscience. The story doesn't hold up from any angle. We mentioned that Nero was a beloved emperor in his early days. He truly was. He supported the arts and sports, sang himself, and played the lyre. He even gave public concerts. During this time, he ordered the Olympics to be held every 5 years and trained athletes. He himself participated in the chariot race. However, he nearly died in this dangerous race. For this reason, he did not continue and only continued to participate in competitions as a singer. By the years 67 to 68 AD, Nero had gone too far and popular revolts had begun. In some regions, these revolts even turned into civil war. On June 9th, 68 AD, he was assassinated. A few people from the public brutally murdered Nero. After Nero, the Roman Empire experienced very bad times. The people, especially Christians who believed these bad times were an omen, began to believe that Nero was the Antichrist and would return to bring about the apocalypse.